Good afternoon and welcome to yet another TUG Connects 365 webinar today. I'm Gloria Nelson, your host with TUG, and as you settle in and get ready for the start of today's webinar, let me give a brief introduction for TUG, the usergroup.org, for both our current members and those of you who represent organizations that have not yet joined our online community of info distribution software users. Now, we've all heard that phrase that knowledge is power, and I can say with confidence 100% that after today's presentation, you'll be waking up tomorrow with a little more of both. Now, TUG webinars, online forums, and member events facilitate the timely exchange of ideas and information to help you work smarter and with more confidence. Now, that's a powerful combination. If you're currently a member, it pays to get even more involved. And if you're not, please visit our website to discover why 2,300 heads are better than one to help you be the best at what you do each and every day. I'd like to just share that with regard to this content today, that the intellectual property is open. You can feel free to take screenshots and also copy and paste any chat that you would like to. And if any resources are dropped in or comments by those that are presenting today. So without any further ado, it is our pleasure to welcome George Dunham, epaCUBE CEO, who will introduce his co-presenters as they dive into the first supply success story with epaCUBE's pricing optimization. George, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Gloria, and thanks everyone for attending today. We're really looking forward to speaking with you today and having a fun interactive webinar with you. Before I introduce my co-presenters, I wanted to make sure that you were aware that we do have a Q&A bubble available and a chat bubble available for you. Please do avail yourselves of that. We will be monitoring that as we go through. And
excuse me, I'm just going to interject here for a moment. Donny, yes. I'm looking at your presenter view, your speaker view, rather than the slide presentation view. If you want to flip and share your other screen, you can maybe stop sharing and then go into choosing another screen with full slide view. Sorry about that, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'll let you know when we have you in full sight line. There you go. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Please do avail yourselves of the Q&A opportunity. We want to get your feedback, and if you see questions or comments that you agree with, vote on them, because that will elevate them to higher visibility for us, and we'll make sure that we get those covered as we go through the presentation. So the main focus of this presentation today is going to be sharing with you the great success that First Supply, one of our great customers, had in 2020. And they were gracious enough to do a case study with us that we released recently that had some really fantastic results, but also very practical problems and solutions that Betz, who is joining us today representing First Supply, their corporate pricing manager, working with Donny and Novak, our director of customer success, that they were working through things that are probably very common to you, but were able to resolve them and turn some strengths into weaknesses, particularly in a very challenging environment. So the order of the agenda today, we're going to do a brief overview of epaCUBE and who we are. We then want to get into kind of a roundtable open discussion where we talk about what challenges First Supply had, how they addressed those challenges and opportunities last year, and Donny and Ann will have kind of a free-flowing discussion about that. And the really important thing to remember here is last year in this very demanding environment, the First Supply team, led by Ann, were able to achieve a greater than 20x ROI right in the teeth of the pandemic. So it's really a great story, and it's a great case study we're pleased to share with you today. We'll then take a quick walk through the software, and the software will reflect basically how the software works and how easy it is to use to accomplish much of what you hear Donny and Ann talking about. And then finally, we're going to talk about our service approach, because we're very committed to sticking with our customers. We don't just deliver software, we want to deliver results because our promise and our expectation is that all of our customers, and particularly TUG customers, who we have great long-term relationships with, we expect to deliver a 10x ROI or better to each one of you. So a little bit about epaCUBE. We have been around for quite a while, and most of you have probably seen us at TUG shows over the years. But we've been around since 2001. In 2019, we were nominated to one of the fastest growing tech companies in DFW. What you'll see, particularly on the next slide, is we are a company that very much is focused on the distribution industry, the distribution vertical. We like to say that we have distribution in our DNA, and you'll see from the next slide that the management team at epaCUBE has great experience, deep experience in various, pretty much all of the major distribution verticals. We've got a number of successful longtime TUG customers, and what we'll be focusing on today is our pricing optimization solution, which has been in commercial really since 2013. It's come a great way, a long way since 2013, and some of you who may not have seen this for a few years, I think will be really pleasantly surprised with how far it's come, and how far it's come, particularly at the direction and the input that we've gotten from our existing customers. We've learned that expert services to help you after implementation is a key to our success. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I think Ann and Donny will really get into that. This is a kind of an unusual logo slide because this represents the over 100 years of distribution experience that the epaCUBE management team has, and some of the companies that are represented in the experience of those epaCUBE leadership. So before we get into specifically talking about First Supply, I wanted to point out that while their success is fantastic, it's not unusual. Our top 20 customers last year, so each one of them operating in a very demanding, a very rapidly evolving environment, still picked up over $9 million of improved gross profit in 2020, which averages out to about $500,000 per customer. So fantastic results were achieved in improving gross profit, even in the pandemic environment. And I do want to point out, these are real results that will come straight off the performance scorecards of our customers that we'll look at later. So there's no soft benefit numbers that are built into this. These are truly the gross profit on transactions in 2020 relative to the same transactions in 2019 for the price changes that were made, resulted in this $9 million plus increase in gross profit. And across the board, these 20 customers achieved an average of 20.4 ROI. So the best practices that we have established over our experience over the last 7 years working with customers, it's kind of a 5-step process. And I'll reiterate this later, but it all starts with the foundation of great customer segmentation. And great customer segmentation that is facilitated by a very sophisticated but easy to use tool that allows us to work with you to identify like customers, so we can see where like customers are buying like products and paying less than what other like customers are, but also gear that pricing strategy to what is important for you and your organization. So there is flexibility to weight different attributes of how we develop segmentation to respond to either revenue, profitability, or cost to serve type attributes that may be more important to you than others as you develop your pricing. And having identified those opportunities, we will work very closely with you to identify strategically how we're going to attack this. Where are we going to start? Where can we get the most bang for the buck, be the least disruptive, and then build on that success? and you build, and we also then build on that success by delivering a tool called Sales Assistant, which allows us to deploy that guidance in order entry or in CRM, but actually give a pop-up guidance of what is the right price for this customer buying this product as the sales rep is making that sales decision. So they don't have to guess, they don't have to default to what's the last price paid. We actually give them real-time visibility into what's the target price, maybe what the floor is, what the ceiling is, and allow them to, with that guidance, with that data, make a more informed decision than they normally would. And having made these changes, we then track specifically the changes that were made in our performance scorecard, which really gives us and the management team the opportunity to say, we made these changes, which ones are working, which ones aren't, how do we adjust, how do we improve, and then basically repeat the process. And I think Ann will also support the fact that the performance scorecard is a terrific tool for her to report within our organization and to the management of organization exactly how these initiatives are performing. So that you can say, hey, we made all these changes. They were successful, and it supports us going into this area or this area rather than making changes and never really knowing how well they performed. So tracking that performance and the ROI is critical to our best practices. And then finally, the last piece is, in addition to extending into new areas where strategically we extend the pricing optimization changes and the price record changes, we've also introduced a whole new module that allows for you to optimize contracts and customer-specific pricing with the same power that we're giving you to optimize matrix pricing. So we're very excited about the epaCUBE Contract Manager. So these are kind of the 5 key elements of the epaCUBE best practices for success. So at this point, I would like to, again, introduce Ann Betz and Donny Novak and let them talk about kind of the key observations, the key opportunities, the key pain points that they addressed, that they were able to achieve last year, and put it in kind of conversational terms so that you guys who are in similar positions will probably hear a lot of things that are things that you're struggling with or opportunities you see that you're not able to really go after. For those of you who don't know, First Supply is a terrific company, a great successful regional company, has been around, as you can see, for a very, very long time. And we're very proud to have them as a longtime customer of epaCUBE. So Donny and Ann, would you please just take it away?
Thank you, George. Hey, Ann, how are you today? It's good to see you again.
Good. Good to see you.
Remember when we started this journey, man, with the pricing and how everything looked? I think it's a great place just to start off and kind of talk to everyone about, what did it look like when we started?
When we started, we did have customer and product segmentation. However, we had 11 different regions, and each region had their own matrices. And part of the issue was, rather than managing those customer price types in those matrices, we created customer specific pricing. So rather than really managing your global pricing, we made exceptions to it. And over time, that pricing was no longer relevant in the market.
And you had, like, if I remember correctly, you had like over 200 customer pricing segments, right?
Right. We had over 200 customer price types. Again, we had also over, roughly 100 people had access to create, change, delete a price record. There was no end dates put on price records. There was no reviews done on, especially customer specific pricing. There were no end dates. And also, instead of managing an existing price price record, customer specific, we were just creating new ones. So we had, you know, a bunch of duplicates in the system, and it was a mess.
And then on top of that, if they didn't like any of that, they would just manually override.
Right.
And it was
exactly.
And it was some crazy percentage. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was a really high percentage.
Yeah, our overrides had gotten, and part of that is because of the fact that we didn't have, you know, we were not managing our matrices. And so everybody, you know, all the order writers were compensating for that. And then of course, you know, you always bump into the 5 and 10 and 15% margins where it's comfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of disruption going on as far as our pricing strategy.
I remember we had a good laugh about it. We said, you know, you've got all these customer segments, you've got all these specific price records, and then on top of that, you've got manual overrides, you know, crawling all over the place. That if you had 100 writers doing all of this stuff, that they were essentially your pricing managers in the organization, because they had control over everything. And I think one of the big points that we were able to do was pull that pricing lever back into a corporate function and get that matrix relevant and day to day, and really figure out, you know, are these specific records really, you know, really needed, and bring that control back to you and your team in order to drive that margin improvement.
Right, and we utilized EPO for that, initially looking at historical sales and seeing where we were actually selling. And then using that as a tool also to set our different levels of matrices in regards to, you know, customer size and customer roles as far as the business and the market that they were in. So we really leaned on EPO to kind of help us start that consolidation into the 10 customer price types versus the, you know, over 200.
Yeah, and that kind of gave us the model on which we could create those pricing records from, the new pricing records that we were going to implement, and kind of reset that matrix, if you will, or reset that, you know, the general global price that's flowing through the system, and then we can measure against that, because we had you know, measuring into that performance scorecard, which we track each individual price record and see, A, is it performing, or, you know, the other side, is it not performing? Or are we still getting overrides on the price records we created? You know, part of the process is that communicating and getting everyone on board and rowing in the same direction. What were some of the challenges that we had talked about in terms of, you know, that culture change that had to occur in the business?
Well, I think initially for us, excuse me, was to show them, you know, using slide shots of the software in our own historical sales, is to bring that in and to show them how we were actually doing business and why that was driving how we were setting our pricing. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't guesswork. It was based on historical sales. And, you know, showing that to the leadership, the managers, the GMs, and then talking to the salesmen, you know, another level of discussion, you know, bringing in the outside salesman and showing them why it made sense to maybe, you know, set a customer in this pricing structure versus this pricing structure. Again, it's using real numbers that guided us. And as far as overrides with order writers, one of the things that I found in meetings with them as well is that I don't think they, when you show them how small a difference they make by manually pricing in the customer's price versus how they kill the margin, it's huge.
Yeah.
You know, and it, you know, anytime I bring up slides in one of those inside sales meetings and I show them, hey, we just killed the margin by 13%. However, you saved the customer $1. I mean, you know, that's the outcome of it. And so that was a awakening, I think, for a lot of the order writers, is to say, hey, I don't necessarily, you know, have to lower this because it's not going to make a huge impact anyway.
And you kind of took the I think and I feel out of the process and had more data-driven conversations,
Right.
I think, in a data-driven conversation, the data never lies. There's always a story behind it, but the data never lies. And I think that helped kind of advance, it propel the culture in First Supply to adopt the pricing that's being used, which in turn provided margin dollars.
Right, it definitely, and I had mentioned to you before, we had a previous pricing solution that we did a beta test in one of our regions, and we would provide them the data. They would do whatever with it, and they'd send it back and say, this is how this is how you should price, this is how you should sell. Well, it's difficult to sit down with leadership group or your outside salesman especially and say, hey, you're pricing wrong, this is how you should price, because they said so, right? And so by bringing this where we can bring in the actual sales and we can sit down with them and show them historically how we've been selling, it's an easier buy-in because it makes sense. We can stand behind it.
And then George had pointed out earlier, he talked about the concierge services and how we're partners in this. It's epaCUBE and First Supply working through this together. Can you share a little bit of your experience in that regard?
Well,
because I think that would be important to the viewers.
Definitely. So George mentioned that previously, as far as the team that's in place right now, and First Supply has been a customer user of EPO for some time, but I can tell you it's improved. It's continually improved as far as the support, the knowledge. When I first looked into the software and looked at my numbers, it's like, where do I start? I was overwhelmed. And so working with you, Donny, you're helping me create profit plays and strategic moves to focus on and to make a difference. And there's no other support team that can stand against up to epaCUBE, because I can send an email and you're responsive. I can jump on a call with you, and the support is it's excellent, just excellent.
We appreciate. We really it's one of our values in our organization. We don't throw software over the fence to our customers. We're here with you. That's why we consider everyone a partner.
Right.
And the great thing about that is we're not finished. Even though you had great results last year, we're not finished. We have a whole list of profit plays and things to work on, for 2021, which is I'm super excited about.
Me too.
And the most important thing is 20x plus ROI. To be able to make changes and be able to view the margin dollar improvement on those specific changes and equate an ROI back to the software. That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm really proud of you and the team at First Supply. We value you guys as a partner, and I'm looking forward to 2021.
Yep, we are too.
So we we put some general screenshot here for everyone to view. We didn't want to divulge any sensitive information, but you can see, from week 1 through week 15, how it just really ramped up, and the more price records we created, the more sales dollars we touched, the more margin improvement. It just really escalated from there. The continuous work that we kept working on, right? We never stopped. We kept right on to the next strategy, the next profit play, the next strategy, the next profit play, and it paid dividends for us. So thank you. Thank you for your time today, Ann.
Also, Donny, you'd mentioned the SCORECARD, and that was developed probably more towards the end of 2019 when we really started developing that, and that has been a great tool for us to not only for ourselves to really gauge and see what we've accomplished, but also to share that with the leadership group, and so they understand all the changes that we've made, although not all easy, because there's a lot of culture changes, but the changes that have been made have had a great impact.
Absolutely. And thank you for jumping on with us today. Hopefully it gave all the viewers something to think about or ponder, or say, hey, I've got that going on in my business. So appreciate it.
Hey, Donny, and thanks a bunch. Gloria, could we maybe show the first polling question here?
The first polling question, the new one with regard to pricing, is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, we're gonna just work in a couple of polling questions here just for our information and maybe to kind of tailor the rest of our discussion. So yeah, we can just start with this one. We'd like to know, as you look at your operations now, which one of these three pricing challenges is the one that you struggle with the most? System pricing, manual pricing, contract pricing, kind of the three big ones that we've seen. But we'd like to kind of get a feel for the TUG participants and which one is, it seems to be trending as the one they struggle with the most now.
Yeah, George, I agree. I think one of these three usually stands out when we talk to prospects or customers that we engage with. So there's usually one that jumps out.
So pretty clear. The system price is the number one. Donny, before we move into the software, any observations about that?
I'm not surprised by that. I think system price is something that a lot of companies struggle with. Sometimes it's called the global price. It's just the price that pops up on the writer's screen when there's no specific pricing that's in place. So I'm not shocked by that, and it's something that's we're really good at developing and putting in play.
Would you say that often is the way that our customers are kind of getting the most bang for the buck with the least disruption as they get started with us?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say getting that kind of backbone price in place, resetting that system price to where it's a relevant price that pops up on the writer's screen, and getting the writers or counter folks to buy into that price. That's usually a great starting point.
Very interesting. Yeah, thanks guys, and thank you, Donny. So as we continue on, what we'd like to do is just kind of give you an overview of how the software works, kind of the main pieces of the software that represents how the software was used in much of what Donny and Ann were talking about. So as we look at our software, we really have these five key areas that we focus on, but it all starts with customer segmentation. And the customer segmentation is truly the foundation of everything that epaCUBE does. But as you see, we've built this tool which is incredibly powerful but very easy to work with, and it allows you to customize segmentation based upon the key attributes of buying power, profitability, cost to serve. But as you look down, there are sub-attributes representing each one of those. So they're sales revenue, unique items, unique orders represent buying power. Then same sort of attributes supporting profitability and cost to serve. The really great thing here, the cool thing here is as you look at these, you can see their percentages on each one of these attributes. We have the ability to change the weighting and increase or decrease for elements of your pricing strategy that you consider to be more important than others as you are developing your pricing strategy. Or you may see trends in your business that you now want to be responsive to. For instance, you may see a dramatic increase in returns, and you feel like that you haven't adequately or properly recognized returns as a cost to serve element as you develop your pricing. So we can increase that weighting both for cost to serve as well as within cost to serve for returns, so that your pricing reflects that. So it's kind of twofold benefit. It gives you the right price based upon things that are important to you as you go forward, but it also gives you something to talk to customers about who maybe think that they should be getting a better price. That maybe if they were to be able to coach to reduce their returns, they could then get the price that they want to have.
George, can I jump in here and add something
Yes,
as well?
absolutely.
In my 20 years of distribution, customer segmentation was always a project of pulling this spreadsheet together, pulling this data together, and just getting all this data. And it usually took 2-3 weeks before we got it all together, plated up for someone to even look at. I've never ran a customer segmentation model and it taken more than 45 seconds to produce results. So we've really taken 3 weeks worth of work, cut it down to 45 seconds. And you can even change the model. You want to change the model up and put a little more weight here, a little less weight there. Run it again, 45 seconds, you'll have a new set of data. So it really is a powerful and flexible tool.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, Donnie. So having created that segmentation, that then allows us to identify where are the pricing opportunities. And opportunities are defined as what transactions of like customers buying like products are recurring, have been occurring below the target price. The target price is that statistical mean. So if you think about a bell curve, that target price is going to be in the middle. Transactions that have historically like customers buying like products that have been sold at prices less than the target price. If we were to just move those up to the target price, that's how we determine what is the gross profit opportunity. So in this case, on a $276 million company, to move those transactions that were occurring below the target up, there was over $14 million of opportunity that was identified in this database. But then you have the ability then to dig down and dive down, drill down, and look at it at a more incremental level, and finally get to the product, customer segment, product, but get down to an executing level where you're really making decisions, and that's kind of the second step. So having done segmentation, we then work with you at this point to identify strategically where are we going to make those initial pricing changes. So with the objective being most bang for the buck without being disruptive to your organization. So what we want to do is get you gross profit improvement, get the ROI going, but we also want to build confidence and support within your organization that this is a successful way of running your pricing operation and communicating those pricing changes. Donnie, anything you want to add into those last screens about how you strategically are working with customers to develop those initial pricing record changes?
I would say, everyone has some degree of, I'll call it dirty laundry in your data. Those things that don't represent a relevant day-to-day transaction that needs to be carved out or excluded from the data. So I would say, if you have things going on in your business that don't represent day-to-day transactions, don't worry about it. We'll identify them, we'll carve them out, and we'll get them out of the data set, because the whole idea is to find like customers buying like products, paying a relevant price.
That's a great point. And that is part of that initial work that Donnie does and our team does with you, is kind of validating that data so that we do identify those one-off deals where we don't want the price skewed either up or down because it really wasn't a typical arm's length commercial transaction. So having completed segmentation, we've now decided we're going to make these strategic price record changes. What we want to do is give you the ability to execute on those and optimize that execution. And we've developed epaCUBE Sales Assistant, which we've deployed both in order entry systems as well as CRM systems to give guidance in the form of an API call, kind of a pop-up that the sales rep in order entry or in CRM can utilize this to get immediate feedback and guidance on this customer buying this product. What's the target price? And if I, move the price up or down a little bit, that slider will tell you what the gross profit change is for the change up or down in the unit price. So the objective really is for us, not necessarily tell you what price to charge, but to give you guidance at the time where the rubber meets the road, where you're making that decision, that allows you to have a very informed price where you can use data to help you make the best price possible, and also get away from things like what was the last price paid, or the kind of the rules of 5, 10, 15, I make 5% discount, et cetera. So fine tuning that decision at the point where you're making the decision is one of the things we've introduced, and kind of an extension of how we get you successful. The next piece, critically important, as Donny and Ann talked about, which is now that we've made changes, we're executing on those changes. How did we perform? How do we measure success? And maybe more importantly, how do we identify where price records changes we made were not successful, so that we can dig in, determine why they didn't work, and make changes so that it's kind of a continuous cycle of improvement. And what we want to see in our customers is that left side, which the blue and the green. The blue represents the historical gross profit on the price record changes that have been made, and the green is representative of the increased gross profit this year since the price record change was made. So what we want to see is that left side marching up, but at the same time on the right side, we're measuring overrides on a weekly basis, and want to see that kind of marching down so that we can see that the sales team, the decision makers, are accepting the new strategy, the new changes that have been made. And actually, before we go on to that one, Ann brought this up. It's really important. This isn't just a tool to be used for the pricing manager. It's a great synopsis to circulate within the organization or upstairs to management to show the success that's being made, and that week by week success. And it can be used as a tool to develop support, cross-functional support, and enthusiasm for the new initiative that the company's undertaking in pricing. Finally, the last piece, kind of the fifth piece of this best practice, is contract manager, which we have developed based on feedback that we got from our customer base, that they need help with pricing in the matrix, but man, at some point we really need help with a tool to better manage customer specific pricing and contracts. So we released this in that's probably in the last year and a half. It's a super powerful program because it allows you to sort across different views that you might want to look at. You may want to look at what are the contracts expiring in the next 90 days so that I can evaluate the success of those contracts. It's something we want to keep doing. You may want to identify which contracts are not being used. So you can evaluate, why do we have it? Do we still need to have it in place? Is there some sort of discussion we need to have with the customer to generate some sales? So there's all number of opportunities. We also see the profitability of those contracts, all those agreements. And one key thing, having done that segmentation, we then show you, hey, relative to what this would be on the matrix, is this a good price? I mean, so you can recognize and really understand the profitability or what you are giving up by having this CSP. So, Gloria, if we could, I was thinking maybe we could work in that other polling question here just for us to understand people who are on the call, have you been using a pricing optimization solution? Kind of thought of it in three ways. You are not using one, or evaluating. You may be using one now, or maybe used one in the past and you went away from it. So that would be helpful for us before we get into the Q&A and answer questions, and then talk about the special TUG incentive that we are offering. We probably could have put another option on here, but we wanted to keep it to these three main ones. Excellent. So good feedback. 56% exploring. You know, I think that's representative of what we see kind of across the industry as we talk to people. This is really becoming a front of mind topic and issue for companies, for CEOs, particularly as we're dealing with this new environment where the in-person, face-to-face sales relationships are becoming more and more difficult, and tools like this become easier to deploy and more helpful in these situations. So thanks for doing that one, Gloria.
And I jump back on here because I see your Q&A slide. It's time for me to put my best face forward and jump on here and let you know what kind of feedback has come through the Q&A bubble as well as through the chat window. So without any further ado, I'm going to address the first question. Is customer price type a pricing tier for you or a business segment, example, commercial, residential, gas fitter, etc.?
So yes, that's a great question because it addresses some of the functionality for Segment Optimizer. So within Segment Optimizer, we can segment on any attribute that the customer has, whether it be a customer type, customer size. If we're able to get it in the EPO software, we can create segmentation off of it. Absolutely.
Wonderful. And the next question is, do rebatable products play a role in determining price?
Another great question. So in terms of rebates, that is another attribute that we key in on within the software. So we can create pricing on the product with the rebate. We can choose to create it with the rebate. We can choose to only look at the products that did not have a rebate, or put it all together. It really comes down to the strategy. When we sit down and start talking about how the business works, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and move forward from there. But absolutely, we can isolate that data either way or include it all together if we need to.
Great. And also, are there measurements in place or guidance for sales when it comes to non-stock SKUs?
Non-stock is interesting. Because a lot of times we see non-stocks that it's products that are being created ad hoc. The writers are creating it just at will when they need a product. I think it really comes back to the product segmentation and where that product lies in terms of the PPT. So if we're able to place that non-stock item into a PPT with a group of other items that are similar, then absolutely we'll be able to provide relevant guidance and pricing for that item as well.
And Anne, I'm going to ask you if you could be so kind as to unmute yourself, because there's a question posed here for you. It says, Anne, did you time your matrix changes with the effective vendor price increase date?
We always review our matrix prices when there is a vendor change. That's probably the biggest opportunity. We look at our matrix pricing as well as our customer specific pricing at that time, because again, you can always blame the vendor for the price change. So that's your greatest opportunity. In 2020, we did make some huge culture changes in regards to limiting how much a default matrix price can be discounted. And that had a huge impact for us in 2020 as well. But as far as ongoing, we always review our matrix pricing with the vendor changes, because that's a great opportunity to, move the needle a little bit, inch it up.
Great. Also, this just populated. Are there alerts for when a contract net price has seen an increase from a vendor?
So we can isolate in the ECM module that we showed, we can isolate down that customer ID and see all of the price records that were created around that customer ID. And from there we can, you obviously know, you get that notification that, hey, you got a cost increase coming, it's average 4%. And then whenever you actually get the file in, you see which product or group of products actually were affected by that cost increase. So it makes it very easy to hone in on that product or that group of products that's being affected.
Great. Great. I have another question here. Do you have any advice? This kind of like is what I've been thinking, and I don't even know anything about some of these ERPs and optimization, but it says, do you have any advice on where to start my pricing journey? Should we start with specific products or customer types?
I think it depends on what your data looks like. If you need more help on the customer side, we dig into customer. If you need more help on the product segmentation, we're going to go there first. We're going to address what needs to be addressed first in order to get like customers and like products together, so we can determine a relevant day-to-day price. We're always going to take a look at the customer segmentation and product segmentation, determine which, if either one needs help. And then at that point, start reviewing data and making some changes.
Wonderful. I don't see any other questions now that have populated, but I'm going to keep my eye on the screen. And George, I'm going to turn this back to you because I think you have a couple of comments here to wrap up, right?
Yes, thank you, Gloria. So we did want to offer something we're really excited about, because we've had a long relationship with TUG. And we want to get it as many TUG members as possible using EPO. So we've put together this special offer for TUG members, which has some great benefits. First, we're going to discount the implementation fee by 50%. So it's usually a standard $25,000. It's going to be $12,500 for TUG members. We're also going to give you 6 months after implementation. We're going to give you 6 months at no cost to work with the contract manager module and work with the sales assistant module. Both of those will you'll have full benefit of those before you need to start paying for those. So normally those are extra modules, extra charges on top of the base fee, and we're going to give you a 6-month evaluation period at no cost. And then this is really one of the keys of being successful, though, is our expert advisory services and this concierge service that Donny and his team deliver, which sticks with you after implementation. So it's after training, after implementation, and it's in addition to the normal guidance we're going to give you for 3 months. New TUG members in the next quarter are going to get 3 months free, where Donny is really acting as your virtual pricing manager. So he's going to be side by side with you on several times during the week, helping you decide what we're going to attack, helping you identify what does it mean, the kind of results we get back, working with you on a communication plan within your organization, what he's seen as most successful for rolling out these types of changes. So that 3 months after implementation for new TUG members in the next quarter, we'll get that at no charge. So the value of these is really, it's greater than $30,000, and we're really happy to be able to offer this and hope we can get a number of new TUG members to take advantage of it. So how do we get started? First of all, we do have a landing page that we would invite you to visit epacube.com/TUG members, or contact sales@epacube.com email. But what we want to do is give you a demo, but do it with your real data. We've gotten very efficient at this. It's very non-disruptive for your IT group. But we want to be able to get your data, be able to do a preliminary segmentation study so that we can give you a demo that isn't just hypothetically how the software works, but actually kind of dig into what are some of the real opportunities we're seeing for gross profit improvement in your company with your real sales data. And it's typically something, if we can get the data, which is not hard to do, we'll have that ready for you within a week of when we receive it. And first pass, once we get into this with you, we typically see gross profit of 2 to 4%, if not more. First pass for the last few we've seen have been in the 4, 5, 6 range. So it has substantial opportunity. And you know, one of the things we've seen with our customers we ask to set goals every year. And last year, actually the year before, we were interested in seeing performance of our customers relative to their goals. And it was fascinating to see that for these customers who set goals, worked hard to achieve them, the average company achieved 334% of the goal they set, which means there's always more opportunity using our software to improve gross profit than you think going in. So it's a tremendously powerful tool that as you can see, our top 20 customers had great results. First Supply is the case study is a fantastic case study of how to become a great company using this software. And, you know, they've achieved greater than 20%, 20x ROI. And we basically expect everyone we work with to achieve at least a 10x ROI. So that's the way we measure our success with our customers. And we measure that each week and identify who's achieving that, who isn't. And the ones that aren't, we put into place proactive plans on how we're going to get them up to that ROI. So I wanted to leave this this up so that you can write down how to schedule a demo or contact us to ask questions. But we'll make it very easy and look forward to getting the opportunity to meet with you all in the very near future.
We had one last anonymous question pop up that says, using the bell curve, how are you coming up with the target margin?
Want to take that, George? You want me to take it?
Well, I mean, it's sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, we're coming up with the target margin from the statistical mean of the transactions going through whatever that intersection of product and customer is.
Right. So it is the statistical mean of those customers buying that customer group buying that product. So it's not something that's extrapolated. It is actually based upon your real history, real gross profit you really have achieved.
Yep.
Well, that was quite a session on pricing optimization. I'm always amazed that I'm not in the distribution market, but I've learned so much in the hosting process, and I believe that our online attendees have today as well. So first of all, thank you, George, Ann, and Donny, for joining us today and sharing what it is that epaCUBE has to offer. And also, we'd like to thank everyone who took time from their busy schedule today to join us that was in the digital audience. And also want to have you feel free to continue the dialogue and any questions that you might have in the appropriate forum. We know that Donny and George keep an eye on that, and it's important that, you know, we keep an ongoing discussion. I'd also like to mention that Friday we have Brent Grover coming back by popular demand. He'd previously done an M&A from the seller's viewpoint 2 weeks ago, coming Friday, and he's going to do the flip side of that coin this Friday on the buyer's portion. And as you know, he's an M&A expert, author, and also a professor as well. So TUG members, thank you so much. And if you are not a TUG member, I have to say why. Please join us and go to www.theusergroup.org and join today. And folks, as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.